Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another edition of the London Divide. We're back. I'm back now. For everyone asking, yes, had a great time in Qatar. So yeah, we're back to the football. We're back to business, back to all the shows on that on the channel. We've got quite a lot to get through today. Obviously, Chelsea smashing 4 past Burnley, Arsenal finally beating Man City, but there is only one place to start, and the legend, Chelsea legend, football legend, Eden Hazard announced his retirement from the game. Hey, before we dive into that, people, make sure you smash the likes, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. The monetization is now working again. I've managed to get it all sorted out. So guys, if you want to support the channel by sending in any super chats that guarantee your comments to be read out, then you can do that. You can also become a member of the channel as well to support myself if you wish to do so by clicking the link in the description. But let's dive into Eden Hazard and his retirement announced today. It's kind of been coming for a long time. He obviously left Madrid in the summer, agreeing to terminate his contract a year early. And he hadn't signed for anyone, so it's kind of obvious that he was probably going to retire. But still, when it happens, it still kind of hits you a little bit. So his statement today: you must listen to yourself and stop at the right time. After 16 years and more than 700 matches played, I've decided to end my career as a professional player. I was able to realize my dream. I've played and had fun on many pitches around the world. During my career, I was lucky to meet great managers, coaches, and teammates. Thank you to everyone for those great times. I'll miss you all. I also wanted to thank the clubs I've played for: Lille, Chelsea, Madrid, and thanks to the Belgian Association for selecting me. A special thank you to my family, friends, advisors, and the people who have been close to me in the good times and bad. Finally, a huge thank you to you, my fans, who have followed me for all these years and for your encouragement everywhere I've played. Now is the time to enjoy my loved ones and have new experience. See you off the field soon, my friends. Webby, from a sort of a neutral perspective, I guess, or from an Arsenal perspective, you must be pretty glad that he's retired and he's not going to cause any more damage to you.
Yeah, he was an exceptional player, wasn't he? When he was in his pomp in the Premier League, he always, you think of the goal, the one that stands out was the goal at Stamford Bridge where he left half our team on their backsides. That was unbelievable. But he was, from a neutral's point of view, he was a joy to watch, wasn't he? What a footballer. Brought so much, the way he played football was just so joyful to watch. Attacking talent, dribbles unbelievably well and low center of gravity, really easy on the eye, and his end product was unbelievable. So yeah, what a player.
I mean, it's kind of mad, right? Because for a generation of fans like ourselves, outside of the sort of the GNA merchants that you get kind of growing up these days, people will look at his output. And if we're being honest on output wise, which is not what football's all about, but if you're purely looking at his output wasn't that great. Someone like Mo Salah, for example, absolutely gazumps his output in terms of goals and assists over his career. But in terms of ability with a football, Hazard, for me, he goes down as one of the best in the Premier League, probably one of the all timers. I mean, in terms of wingers in their prime at the top of their game, I honestly think only Ronaldo betters him. You don't, for me personally, in the Premier League during his prime time, I don't think we've seen a better winger than Eden Hazard other than Ronaldo. As you say, just the things he'd done with the football, his low center of gravity. He shouldn't have been able to get past people the way he did, and leave people for dead. I mean, there was one. I mean, obviously the goal against Arsenal at the Bridge, I think that was in the 6-0 against with Wenger. Obviously the Baku night where he got a couple as well. But for me, I always reckon his best goal, I don't even remember it. We played Liverpool away in a Carabao Cup at Anfield a number of years ago, and I think he came off the bench in that game and he scored a phenomenal goal. I think he basically dribbled past 3 or 4 players and then just smashed it in the top corner. But when someone retires, when someone's good, when you see all the tributes coming in from all over the world of football. I mean, would you put him as an all-time Premier League great?
Yeah, I think so. I think for the period he operated in, he was in a title winning side, so he's got the silverware to back it up. He was the talisman of the side, so I think you've got to say any talisman in a side that's won the Premier League is in the Premier League greats conversation, aren't they? I think by default they have to be. So that's fair. It's interesting when you say about his output, because I just remember, obviously, I know Hazard from a non-Chelsea point of view, right? So I probably don't know his ins and outs as much as you and the fans will. But I just remember fantasy football. in Hazard and his peak. Like every week he would just deliver. So all I think is goals and assists guaranteed. So it's interesting that you say his output. Well, what is it there? You've put him up there, haven't you? 64.
65
that's man of the match. I was interested. Do you know what his goal and assist was?
Oh, mate, guys, if someone in the chat can find Hazard's goal and assists in the Premier League, that would be ideal.
Let me get it up here.
But mate, he was man of the match. I do remember, like, he was man of the match most games, like that Chelsea played.
Yeah. It looks like Premier League 85 goals in 240 games. So what, a goal every 3 games? Which
it's not terrible. But
I see what you mean. If you compare it to like the likes of Salah and obviously what Haaland's doing now,
this is what I mean. Like
61 assists, so 80 goals, 60 assists. That 140 goal contributions in 240 games. That's pretty good. That's more than one every 2 games.
That is pretty good. You can't lie about it. It's decent, but you know what I mean though. Like I'm not belittling him in any way at all. But in terms of like when people talk about like today, you see it all over Twitter. Like, oh, who'd you rather have, prime Salah or prime Hazard? Well, Salah's going to get you more goals and whatnot, but he can't do what Eden Hazard does with a football. There's very few players for me that do what he does with a football, and you know, like sort of one of them old school kind of throwback players where he makes you enjoy watching the game. You don't get many of those these days where you on a pitch and you think, I actually enjoy watching this guy play, or like he's worth the entry money alone. Like he was always someone that would be worth the entrance fee. Like are you just quickly, mate? Are you surprised that obviously he got the move to Real Madrid? I think we got his best years at Chelsea. He was phenomenal in that last season. He basically carried us. He had a year left on his deal. We got over 100 mil for him. Are you surprised the Real Madrid move completely flopped? Because I thought that could have elevated him to another level, but it was an absolute disaster.
Yeah, it didn't work out. I don't know. He didn't really. Am I right? Is it fair to say that maybe when he left Chelsea, he didn't look after himself, like fitness wise, and
probably a little bit
as he could, and that potentially started to affect him because, like you said, he's not he moves quickly with the ball, but he's never like absolute athlete, was he? So I don't know whether that contributed to it. Yeah, as I said, I can't say I followed after his Chelsea days that often, but yeah, you'd have expected him to go to Madrid and just like do what he done for Chelsea. But I guess maybe you guys are just fortunate. You probably got 5-6 of his world-class years, didn't you? And you just and then sold him at the right time.
Yeah, mate, I think it worked. He wanted to go. He wanted a new challenge. We got the best years out of him. We got a great deal for him. And kind of, we move on from there. But it's almost a little bit of a shame because I suppose you almost forget how good he was considering the last 4 years of his career were I don't want to say they were nothing, but didn't really contribute anything to Real Madrid over that time. I know it says there's 2 La Ligas there, but he hardly played. Champions League, but he didn't contribute to that. To be perfectly honest, mate, do you think like I saw this stat earlier, and 32 is a really young age to retire, but you constantly hear managers, particularly Mourinho said it at the time, in terms of lack of protection from referees for a player like him. And then when you look at the amount of minutes he played by the age of 24, so these are minutes played by the age of 24. He's played so many minutes, 26,650 best part of minutes by the age of 24. Do you think that sort of maybe the way that he looked after his body at times, and B, how much he had played by such a young age, and sort of the lack of protection, the amount of times he got kicked, fouled, etc. in games? Do you think that's contributed to his body letting him down in later life? Because we see that a lot with players. So Michael Owen played so much football when he was younger, at his best years well before his 30s. I mean, do you think there's anything in that?
Well, it's really interesting because it's like Saka at the moment. Like if I think about, that's what we're talking about big time. There's definitely something in that, isn't there? There has to be, because the management of players, when you break onto the scene early, especially in those attacking roles, like you say, where you are getting kicked about a bit as well, whether that makes a difference. But that's crazy. He played the most minutes by the age of 24. That's some stat, that, isn't it?
Mate, it's mad. When you look at the minutes, like over 1,000 minutes, like more than Ronaldo. Like, I mean, even played more minutes than Owen by the age of 24. And I thought Owen was playing so much football. Like
Sterling as well. You think Sterling? I'd never. If you said to me who played more minutes by the age of 24, Sterling or Hazard, I would have said Sterling all day long.
Yeah,
I would never have thought Eden Hazard. So that is remarkable. Well, goes
it's
back to your point that you just
not really
made,
a
mate.
surprise, is it?
No, it's not a surprise that he went to Madrid and dropped off, is it? Like we said, Chelsea had his pomp, and yeah, Hazard never trained. Yeah, I saw.
He was one of them as well, mate. Like, sorry, I was going to say, he was one of them that like all players that played with him at Chelsea were like, he was crap in training, but they didn't mind because he produced every Saturday on the football pitch. So they didn't mind. You always get a few of them players, don't you, that are just like terrible in training, not like lazy or anything, but obviously perhaps don't put a lot, like 100% into training, but they let it slide because of what they produced on the pitch on a weekend. It is weird that you get players like that don't seem to give it their all in training.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's less likely to happen now. I feel like the top manager, well, not even the top manager. I feel like all the Premier League managers pretty much demand like a certain level. I don't reckon Hazard would be able to get away with that under, let's say, I don't know, from an Arteta or a Guardiola, just to chuck two in there. But it's a shame. Well, it's not a shame, but those players that like are just pure ballers, like you said, just rock up on a weekend and just look really good. I don't reckon that exists as much now because it's much more about non-negotiables.
It's almost a bit like a street footballer in the sense that like guys that just they like so much ability. I'm not saying he wasn't fit or anything, or he didn't try and train him, but it is strange how you get ex players that have played with him, and he wasn't the best trainer. I mean, not everyone's like an amazing trainer. Like you'd rather obviously perform on the pitch and be amazing in training. Because you get it the other way around sometimes as well. You get some players that are unbelievable in training, get to the game and they can't deliver. But I do agree with you to an extent that I don't think you can get away with that as much now. I think you had it at PSG. I think it's a prime example where you can get away with carrying one player in terms of not offering any defensive work. But with PSG, when you've got Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi at the top end of the pitch, with three of them offering zero going back, you can't get away with it. With Hazard, you could get away with it, like one player in the team that is going to deliver. So you just kind of let them have their free reign and don't bother too much like defensively. But yeah, mate. Also, I'll tell you what, mate, it makes you feel a bit old, doesn't it? When players like Hazard are retiring, you think, it wasn't even that long ago that he was like tearing up the Prem and he's finished. But I mean, yeah, it's a shame actually at 32 that he's retired. I would have liked to have maybe seen him gone to MLS or Saudi just to finish on a bit of a high and just go and tear out one of those leagues for like sort of one little last dance. But he obviously doesn't want to do it anymore. His body's kind of given up on him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, what's a guy and what a top player. But we'll move on from Eden Hazard. We'll get to Chelsea's demolition of Burnley. But Matt, the game of the weekend, we talked about it last week, mate. We weren't. I thought City would win. I think you went for a draw in the end. I don't think any of us were particularly confident on Arsenal getting the result. But having said that, not the best game. We discussed it before we went live. Like, it depends what perspective you're looking at it from. If you're looking at it from a neutral perspective where you're wanting a great game, as you were saying, mate, it probably wasn't that great. But from an Arsenal perspective, to win, finally beat Man City, then that's massive. But mate, when the lineup came out and there was no Saka, no Martinelli, you were at the game. You must have been thinking, this could be a difficult afternoon for us.
Yeah, exactly that. We've got the lineup at the ground and no Saka, Martinelli on the bench, which was a bit of a boost, I guess. But Saka was the one, and like it's come out now. I know the club kept that one under wraps. So yeah, and also Partey not starting as well. I think he wasn't fully ready to start. So Jorginho in midfield, Jesus, Trossard, and Nketiah. So yeah, before the game when that came out, obviously not got your star player. Was a bit of a blow, but as it turned out, it worked out perfectly because not only did we get 3 points against Man City for the first time in all those years, but we did it without Bukayo Saka. And I think that will give the squad so much confidence. And also it will show to Arteta that actually like you can rest Saka if you need to. There are other ways to win football matches without Saka. If we can beat City without Saka, we can beat anyone without Saka. So I think it was quite a big day in that regard as well, because I think in the future we might start to see Saka given a bit more of a rest when he needs one, because that's obviously, we spoke about that quite a lot last week. So
Yeah.
huge day. Like, as I said, I'm sure we can get into the game itself, but from an Arsenal fan's point of view, yeah, we needed that psychologically. We needed to beat City eventually.
Yeah, I mean, you almost went a goal down early doors. Rice, I think, clearing off the line from Nathan Ake. As the game transpired, that was a pretty important moment. I mean, David Raya as well, and not well, maybe a bit of a mistake from him. I mean, there's a couple of those in the last two games, and maybe a few creeping in. Obviously, Arteta defending him after the game. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, because if you watch the highlights, all you'll see is Raya panicky. Oh my God, why isn't Ramsdale in? It just isn't the case. Like, the way Raya plays, he's so confident on the ball, and he has his foot on the ball, and it's so obviously what Arteta has told him to do. Like, wait on the ball, draw the opposition in, and then you can pick a long pass when they've kind of approached you, and you've got that space. And Raya's long passing, no matter what way you look at it, is better than Aaron Ramsdale's. It just is miles better than Ramsdale's. So people see Raya with that edgy clearance, no getting away from it. That was a mistake. But that happens. Liverpool-Brighton, 2 goals given away by goalkeeping mistakes. You know, the risk reward is the fact that you're going to invite that pressure. Raya took it too far in one moment, but we got away with it. But Raya's 90 minutes, he was crucial, especially in that second half when his confidence grew into the game. And if you watch the period of play after we went 1-0 up, Raya played 2 like insane long passes out to the left wing where Havertz was. And it was crucial in seeing the game out. So, like, we spoke about this again last week. Raya is Arsenal's number 1. Raya will be Arsenal's number 1. Ramsdale isn't getting his place back now. It's shown. And the reason for that is Raya's confidence on the ball. And he got one thing wrong, but he does an awful lot right. And yeah, it was, you won't get that opinion from people that just watch Match of the Day, because all you see is the kick the ball against Julian Alvarez. So yeah, as I said, I watched him, and the crowd got a bit panicky, but it's for good reason. Like, the coach is clearly telling him to wait on the ball. He's not just doing it for the sake of it.
No, 100%. And sometimes, you know, like, these things take time. And it was the same with Robert Sanchez at Chelsea. Like, he's obviously again been told to kind of play out from the back. I was at the game in the cup against Brighton, and mate, the distribution was horrendous. Every pass was going out for a throw. You know, he was playing players into danger with his choice of distribution, but he kept doing it because, as you say, it's clearly an instruction from the managers that we want you to play this way. But I do agree to an extent, though, that that's all fine. But sometimes there's nothing wrong with just fucking smashing it down the pitch and getting rid of it. Like, you don't want to get yourself in trouble or concede a goal just because you want to be so, you know, so stubborn and stick to the principle of play. It's okay sometimes to launch it long. I mean, would you like to see Raya sometimes do that? I mean, obviously, it hasn't really made any dreadful errors, but do you agree with me that sometimes, like, you think, fuck, if we keep pissing about a bit at the back, we're gonna give a goal away. Sometimes you just want to see it launched long, and I think that's totally all right.
Yeah, I mean, like, in that specific scenario where where Alvarez shut him down, like, yes, Raya should have lumped that and cleared the danger, because that was a potentially goal conceding situation. But more often than not, I don't want to see Raya just pumping the ball aimlessly upfield, because when you do that against better teams, it just comes back at you, and you just can't maintain any pressure. If Raya against City on the weekend was just constantly pumping aimless long balls, all that would have happened is their centre back swoop it up and they squeeze you and they squeeze you and they squeeze you. So, like, that's why Ramsdale's been dropped, because Ramsdale's distribution wasn't accurate enough, and under severe pressure, Ramsdale did just lump it up pitch at times. So yeah, I do agree with you, because in that situation, like, Raya should have cleared the ball and not potentially conceded a goal. But in terms of the overall way we're playing, I do want to see Raya keep being confident on the ball and picking his passes.
No, definitely. I mean, mate, we're going to have to talk about referees again.
Yeah, well,
how did Mateo Kovacic stay on the pitch? Like,
mate,
I couldn't believe it. I saw the two challenges, and I'm thinking the first one is like an orange card, if you want to call it that. It's borderline red. The second one, he was already on the yellow, wasn't he? And that should have been a second yellow all day long. Could have even been a red. Like we've seen, this is why it gets frustrating. You see such a lack of consistency. Like you know full well that they've probably been told, we want to keep this game decent. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to ruin the game. It's Arsenal Man City. It's the big game. You want to keep like all the players on the pitch. But then we saw Liverpool Spurs. Jota come off the bench. He got 2 yellow cards in about 2 minutes, and he was off. But so then, why is that consistency not applied here? I mean, Kovacic had an absolute shocker, but how on earth did he stay on the pitch? I mean, those were 2 horrendous challenges.
No, I don't have much to say apart from I was shocked. I don't. It's I was shocked at the time, and then even more shocked when I saw the highlights after the game. Don't have any explanation for it. Michael Oliver's meant to be one of the best referees we have, and that was, as I said, I don't really know what to say, mate, because he basically accrued 1.5 red cards in that game and ended up. Well, the first one was a red card, arguably probably a red card, but you might argue a yellow. The second one was again. Again, I don't have much to say, mate. Do
you think though, like that's legitimately a thing in big games where they don't want to send players off because they don't want to ruin the spectacle? I mean, it shouldn't. I get that to a degree, but at the end of the day, a red card's a red card. Like it doesn't matter what game it's in. You can't start not sending players off because you think it's going to ruin a game.
Mate, I think that's such a dangerous road to go down. Like, who on earth are the referees to say that Arsenal v Manchester City is a bigger game than Burnley v Luton? Like, if that's the case, then they're refereeing that game differently. Then integrity comes into it, and all the stuff around bias and all those questions come up. Like, it doesn't matter that it's Arsenal v Man City. Like, you make the decisions based off what the rules are, not based off you want to have a good spectacle. So yeah, it absolutely stunk. It was a disgusting decision, and I'm surprised we haven't had another apology, to be honest.
Do you think a little bit less has been made of it because Arsenal went on to win the game? If it was to be a draw, or you were to lose, or you would have lost that game, do you think there would have been like more of an outrage about it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just the way football works. But the problem we've got is this is a Premier League wide issue, right? It's not an Arsenal issue. It's not a Chelsea issue. It's not a City issue. The whole Premier League should be worried about what happened in Arsenal v City, because you know full well, mate, a couple of weeks' time after the international break, or the week after that, something else of that magnitude is going to happen.
When we play each other, there'll be a horrendous decision.
You just know it. You just know it, mate. It fills you with no confidence. So the whole Premier League should be looking at that, being like, okay, so we had Liverpool Spurs incident, right? Arsenal v City, oh god, same happens again. Yes, we won, so it gets brushed under the carpet, but it shouldn't do, because all it's doing is kicking the can down the road. It's like we're again shocked, absolutely shocked, and mate, we spoke loads about it last week.
I couldn't believe it. Honestly, couldn't believe it. Like you don't want to see players getting sent off, and you are seeing a lot more red cards this season. But yeah, it's a dangerous road to go down. You can't be keeping players on the pitch just because you want to preserve the spectacle. Like at the end of the day, red cards are red card. Like obviously it didn't cost you, but we'll get to the goal a little bit later on, mate. But from what did you make of Man City? Because I thought they were particularly poor. I mean, they had an opportunity obviously early on with Ake, which he probably should have scored, and maybe that's a completely different game if that goes in early doors. But were you surprised at kind of how little they offered?
I don't know if I was surprised. I think I was just really proud of how we set up. I think we stifled them. They had the least shots they've had in a Premier League game since 2010. They only had 4 shots in the game, least for that long. And they didn't have a shot after the 58th or 59th minute. And I don't think that's down to City being bad. They had exceptional footballers on the pitch. I just think we set up really, really well. And our centre halves in particular had an absolute stormer. Saliba and Gabriel were fantastic. Well, we were fantastic all over the pitch. So I wasn't surprised. I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect us to keep them that quiet. Like, I expected there to be more scares during the game. So I was surprised in that sense, but more proud of how Arteta and Arsenal played. To be able to control Manchester City like that is really a really good sign.
I mean, we're surprised because obviously Rodri, a huge miss, of course, and that would have been like a big plus from an Arsenal perspective not to see him there. He's so important to everything Man City do. We know Pep likes to sort of think outside the box a little bit, but he must have been surprised to see. Like, I think Bernardo Silva is an unbelievable footballer. Like, he's such a pleasure to watch. But mate, him in the Rodri role was a weird one, wasn't it? That's one of Pep's like sort of. It's either an absolute genius or it's a complete disaster. I mean, I know Calvin Phillips has not been great, or Mateus Nunes is only just come into the club, but surely one of them two would have been better than Bernardo Silva in that Rodri role.
Yeah, especially in a midfield that includes like Declan Rice, who's so good and can dominate the opposition so comfortably. Yeah, but then like, who are we to question Pep? I guess he's done. he's pulled all sorts out of the hat, hasn't he? I suppose he had that period last year. Was it last season? They played Rico Lewis as like an inverted fullback.
Yeah, they always played him in midfield. Yeah, they did that again, didn't they?
They did it yesterday because he did it well in the week in the Champions League, and then last season they reverted back to type and started steamrolling everyone. So Pep's not. It's not new for Pep to kind of play around with stuff in big games or over a period of time, but. Yeah, it didn't really work out for them. You're going to miss Rodri, aren't you? Like that red card looks even stupider now. So
I think you see like why top defensive midfield players are going for over 100 mil, because they're so important. Like, they're so important to a team. You cannot win anything major if you don't have a world-class defensive midfield player. It's as simple as that. If you can have all the best attacking players in the world, best defenders, if that six is missing, or that holding midfield type player, you're going to win nothing. And you think, like, for me, that's why Declan Rice was such an important signing for Arsenal. I'm not saying he's going to win you the league or anything. He could do, but he instantly improves your chances tenfold of going on to do that. And everyone goes on about strikers being really important. I almost think a number 6 is one of the most important positions on the pitch.
So true, because striker, of course, they're important, but you can, like we showed on against City, we didn't have our first choice striker as striker, right? You'd say Jesus is our first choice striker. We had Eddie there as backup. You don't get that in the number 6 in the defensive midfield position. If Rice doesn't play, there is no replacement for him at all. And if Rodri doesn't play, there isn't a replacement for Rodri. So I agree, they're so important. And I think, no one's really talking about Rice's price tag, are they? Probably shows just how good and how important he is. No one's like, you know what the media are like. Anything over 100 million, usually you can't say their name without their price tag.
Mate,
so
they've got their sort of slander articles saved in the drafts, like ready to drop as soon as they have like a terrible performance. But like, it's true. Credit, it's like for Rice, it's the same for someone like Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, these kind of players that, like, the price tag's not been mentioned once because they've done well since they've come in. And you know, at the end of the day, no one cares about the price. If a player comes in and does well, the price doesn't get mentioned once. So look, he definitely gives you a much better chance. I mean, Martinelli comes on, he gets the goal. It's a massive deflection. I don't think the shot was really going anywhere. It wasn't going to be really troubling Ederson, but you get it. Mate, how big is this for Arsenal? I know it's only October, but it's a win against City. I think the first time, well, in 12 games or so. Do you think this can really give you a belief to kick on now in the run-up to Christmas and maybe the rest of the season? Or is it too early to be season-defining?
I don't think it's season-defining. It's not season-defining points-wise, but it is definitely going to go a long way towards this group taking the next step. If we're going to win the Premier League, then this had to happen, because there was a psychological block on Manchester City every time we played them. They beat us, and that's now been overcome. And not only have we shown we can beat them, we've shown that we can beat them and completely control their attacking players. So it'll be absolutely massive for this group. As I said at the top, we've done it without Bukayo Saka. So just what we needed, especially after the Tottenham game at home, which was a bit of an emotional, crazy football match, especially in that second half. We've shown a really good side, and every title-winning side has those games, right? 1-0s where you control the game. As I said, it won't define the season points-wise because that gap it's just too early in the season. But yeah, we're going to kick on from this, and it should give the squad huge belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And and after 8 games, Spurs and Arsenal joint top of the Premier League table. Obviously, like, it's a great start, for sure. But there's still 30 games to go, so a lot can change. I mean, we're going to talk about Saka again. We talked about him a lot, but obviously not in the squad at all. He's pulled out of the England squad. What exactly is wrong with him? And like, do you think there's any worries long term? Because this is about 2 or 3 times now already this season where he's come off. There's an injury, quote unquote, but there's no real in-depth details about it. And then suddenly he just reappears in the starting lineup again. Like before the Bournemouth game, he was almost certain to be missing. He played against Lons. This one he didn't play. What exactly is wrong with him?
Yeah, so basically there's a bit behind this actually. It came out about a couple of hours ago. So the rumours are, and as I said, I don't know if this is absolutely confirmed. The rumours are he was never going to play. And Arsenal, well, he was in contention, but then he didn't pass the fitness test before the game. But Arsenal made him he still travelled with the squad because Arsenal didn't want the leaks coming out. And I think apparently the club have been really rattled that leaks have been coming out, basically.
Yeah.
And so they kept it under wraps. They basically bluffed to make it look like Saka was playing when he wasn't. He was never down to play anyway because he failed the fitness test. They also told the national team, I think, England, that he would be available for one of the games when apparently he was never going to be available because he's been injured, hence why he had to travel to the England camp. That's from Team News and Ticks on Twitter.
They're quite good for leaks, mate. They're actually quite decent, that account.
Yeah, when he tends to tweet, I don't know the guy, but
no.
the guy behind it's a massive gooner, and when he tends to say stuff, it tends to be correct. He doesn't tend to say stuff unless it's legit. So I think that's a story behind that. So I basically think, mate, it's just a minor hammy that, yeah, he needs a couple of weeks to recover from. Simple as that. But Arsenal have tried to play the clever games, mind games.
So he should be fit for the big one against us in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he should be. I hope so. As I said, I don't know exactly how bad the injury is, but you'd hope for a minor hammy that he'll be back for that Chelsea game.
I guess like the only concern is we see it with players at Chelsea all the time, like little niggles then turn into, like, they're not looked after properly. It turns into a bit more of a more major injury and a longer spell on the sidelines. I mean, from an Arsenal perspective, is there a concern that with Saka playing so much football, like we touched on earlier, of these little niggling injuries, that maybe he's maybe one more incident away from a more long-term spell on the sidelines potentially?
Yeah, I don't know really. I just, I guess any player's at risk of a long-term injury at any point. I think I said last week as well, and I stand by it, you just got to trust the club to manage him correctly.
Yeah.
You don't want to kill him early. I'm sure they won't. And maybe like the way if I had to say what I think's happened is it is a really minor injury, but the club are just being really precautious because of exactly what you said. They're very aware of not killing the lad early doors. So, yeah, I don't know. Every footballer's at risk of long-term injury at any point, but I trust Arsenal to manage him effectively. I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's all you can do, mate. Is just put your trust in the club. It is difficult at times, for sure, when you see players constantly getting injured and that. But yeah, look, it's absolutely massive for Arsenal, and it sets them up nicely heading into the big one.
Havertz. I want to talk about Havertz.
Oh, Havertz. Yeah, I forgot to say.
Ask me about Havertz.
Yeah, mate, Havertz. We talk about him every week, and it's not in the most positive light. But I've seen a few Arsenal fans saying that maybe his best role is coming off the bench as a bit more of an impact player. Do you think that could be a sort of a role for him for the time being? But he had a positive impact when he came off. I mean, we came on. Sorry, were you surprised not to see him in the lineup to begin with?
No, I wasn't surprised not to see him in the lineup, but I think rather than an impact player, it just showed that he can do a really, really good job as a striker. And we've spoken about that on previous podcasts, spoken about Havertz loads, haven't we? But the reason I wanted to talk about him was people have been like at him. Mate, he's literally created the winner against Manchester City.
Yeah.
Thomas Partey pings a long ball. Tommy Ashley knocked it down. Havertz had to hold off two blokes, get his touch right and lay it off. Like, there's a lot of work to do there, and he made it look really simple. And then after that, he kept the ball fantastically up front. And what it showed is that he can do a really, really effective job as a striker for Arsenal. And that's what you asked me last week, didn't you? Where would you like to see him play? And I said, I'd like to see him play as a striker.
Yeah.
There you go, mate. That's what he can offer. So I just wanted to get that in because we've spoken so much.
I'm so
happy to see him contribute.
Mate, I hear it. You know, it is weird. He's one of them players where he must be one of the most criticised players going. Like, there's a microscope on his performances every week, every single little thing he does. Oh, he didn't do this exercise properly when he was warming. Like, it's the level of like a micro analysis on him is mad. But yeah, no, obviously he's come on and he's made an impact. And he's back at Stamford Bridge next time round. I don't think he'll get a bad reception. By the way, he certainly didn't leave on bad terms or anything.
Deserve it. He scored the winner in a Champions League final, didn't he?
To be fair though, mate, like, he didn't leave on bad terms. You know, it didn't work out. I don't think there's any ill feeling towards him at all. I'm sure there'll be the usual section of idiots that will boo him, because you get that every single ground. There's always a small section of idiots that just do those sorts of things. But yeah, look, I'd be shocked if he got a universally bad reception on his return to the Bridge. But mate, we're going to move on to Burnley Chelsea. 4 goals for us this weekend, just gone. I'll tell you what, I wasn't expecting that. I watched extended highlights. First half, we were absolutely diabolical. It was sort of going back to shades of last season. Go a goal down. Very fortuitous before the break to get back on level terms. Sterling in the first half, the only player that looked like offering anything, and his cross gets turned in for an own goal. And at 1-1 at half time, he didn't deserve that. Second half switches Jackson for Broja, and he played some champagne football second half. I know Burnley are crap, but this is a big performance for us, because we scored 4 goals. We scored 6 goals in our last 2 Premier League matches. Goal scoring's been an issue, and we looked clinical in the final third. And whether it's you're playing Burnley or whoever you're playing, you still got to put those chances away, regardless of what the opposition is. And for me, it was just a big positive that we scored 4 goals and we looked clinical in the final third, and we managed to win a game coming from behind, which I don't think we've done in the last 19 attempts. I think it's the last 19 attempts of going behind. We haven't won. So we finally shaken that monkey off the back as well. I think more than anything for me, it's one of them where this result gives you massive belief in this group that heads aren't going to drop when we go a goal down. Because last season you knew a goal down, we were going to lose. I think now it's shown that there's togetherness in this group. There's belief in this group that even if we do go a goal down, let's not panic. We've got the quality, and we can still get things done. Raheem Sterling was fantastic. They probably need to tell him every week that he's not in the England squad, because it seems to be he puts performances in when he's Luton. He scored twice. I think that was on the back of the England squad being announced, and he wasn't in it. And then he puts in is another great performance off the back of not being in the England squad. So maybe we just need to tell him that every week. Cole Palmer again was superb. He's looking like a great signing. Caicedo had one of his best games. Yeah, all in all, a really positive afternoon. I mean, I don't know how much you saw of it, mate, but what are your thoughts? Because I think Paul Merson was saying that obviously I think he said a few weeks ago that a team was waiting to get a thrashing from Chelsea. I think he said it on Soccer Saturday, and it kind of had that feeling about it as well myself, that like we're not playing badly, and when it does click and we find our shooting boots in the final third, we will put 4 or 5 past the team, and that's exactly what happened against Burnley. I mean, from what you saw, if you saw any of it, what were your thoughts? Because I know Burnley are crap, but from a Chelsea perspective, like we haven't been clinical in a game for the longest time possible. I think it's the first time we scored 4 goals since the last time we went there in 2022.
Yeah, I think I've watched the highlights, and I think echo everything you said. Like, it'll give a lot of confidence, won't it? It doesn't matter who you're playing. back-to-back wins. You can't have had back-to-back wins for a little while in the Premier League.
First time since March.
There you go. I think the main thing that I'm looking at Chelsea now is all of a sudden, from potentially at the beginning of the season where it was just trying to piece everything together, and we've chatted about it, and trying to fit in what works and playing players in different positions. All of a sudden now you've got a structure and a balance that seems to have clicked, right? You're playing that kind of 4-3 in midfield, and then the two wide players, and whether it's Brozier or Nico Jackson, and you've got a structure that is pretty settled, and players can develop in their positions rather than getting one game and then coming out of the team. So that's probably what's contributing to this, I would say. You're allowing players to learn the relationships with their teammates as well, and that's why you're seeing back-to-back wins, because those players are getting comfortable. International breaks probably come at the wrong time.
I would agree.
If that's the opinion I've got, all of a sudden blokes going off to their national teams, it can disrupt that momentum, especially when you've got us next, Arsenal, a big game. So yeah, it's probably come at the wrong time, but yeah, I think Mercer's comment about a matter of time, I think when you, like, we've spoken about this loads, mate, when you've got that talent in the squad, Of course it's a matter of time before you bang someone. Like, it's going to click eventually. I just think Pochettino has allowed it to click by letting blokes get comfortable.
No, I agree. I think you've got to be in a position as well where you've got a system that you want to play, and then everyone knows their role. So whoever comes in fits into the system. We've seen it with Brighton over the years. It doesn't matter who plays. Whoever comes in, they know their role in the system and they deliver. It's same with Man City. You know the system. It doesn't necessarily matter who plays because you know exactly what they're going to do. And I think that's what at Chelsea we're looking to build, where you've got what you think your first 11 is. But if someone's not available or you want to make a change, you know the next guy coming in knows the system and is going to perform. Mate, on Raheem Sterling, by the way, obviously a senior player. He feels like he's been around for years and years. I think he's still only 27. He's been around fucking ages. But poor season last season, like pretty much every player. Started the season well in the first few games, went missing, came back with a great performance against Burnley. Are you surprised he's not in the England squad? I mean, for me, I don't really care that much because it means that it's one less player going away. He can spend some time at the training ground, do some work, whatever he needs to do. But I mean, are you surprised, given that he's been such a lot like, you know, Southgate's relied on him a lot. He's carried England at times, particularly in that Euros. He completely carried them to the final pretty much. Are you surprised that he's not made the last two squads? And can you even see him getting back in? Because right now, I don't really see how he does get back in.
Yeah, I am surprised. And no, I can't see him getting back in, because if there was ever a time to get him back in, surely it's now. Saka's withdrawn through injury, right? And attacking wide players withdrawn through injury. Surely, if you're gonna offer Raheem Sterling an olive branch to reintegrate, that's it. But like we know, mate, with Ben White as an Arsenal example, it kind of feels like when Southgate and their managers make their mind up, and if something doesn't quite fit and the face doesn't quite fit, then it's very hard to get back into that setup. So no, I disagree with it. I think Sterling should be in the squad. And I don't think he's the only player that's not being treated very well by Southgate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think it's complete. I mean, I don't want to make this about Southgate, but like, it's clear that he's got favourites, a selection criteria.
Oh no, let's make it about Southgate. Yeah. I can't stand him, mate.
I can't stand him either. Mate,
I can't wait till the day he's not manager.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Like, for me, it's clear that, like, I've always been of the opinion that your form for your club dictates if you should be picked for your country. Simple as that. We've got players at the moment that are going to play more minutes for their country this season than they will for their club. That can't happen. The selection criteria has got to be the same for every player, and it's not. It simply isn't. It's a boys' club, and it's wrong. And for me, you know, look, I don't care if Sterling's in the squad or not. I'm not asked. Like, as I said, from a Chelsea perspective, it's better. But I mean, I just. Yeah, I can't stand Southgate, but it's the same. You know, you've got players like Ben White who probably should be in the squad. I'm not saying he's an England starter, but he should be in the squad. I'm not saying Sterling's a starter, but he's just telling me that Sterling's not in the best group of forward players that England have got to offer. Come on, like it is ridiculous. But I mean, how important do you think Sterling can be for Chelsea this season? Because there's a lot of mixed feelings on him. Like, he does a performance like that. but then he'll go missing for 4 or 5 games. There's a lack of consistency, but you know what he can do. I mean, do you think Sterling can be important? Because Cole Palmer's overshadowed him, Mudryk's overshadowed him recently. This was a big performance that Sterling really needed, and with some big games coming up against Arsenal, Newcastle, Spurs, Man City, etc., he's going to probably start a few of those, whether I agree with it or not, on the experience factor. I mean, do you still rate him highly and think he can be an important contributor to this team? Because I think he can, but I'm still a little bit unsure on him.
Yeah, I guess he just needs to show. He needs to show consistency, doesn't he? He needs to, like, he's the senior, like you said, he's not by no means old. How's he, 27? He's senior player though, experienced player, and he needs to lead that young attack. And Premier League, every game is tough. So I want to say that before I say that his 2 star performances have come against Luton and Burnley, who are almost certainly in a scrap. What you need to see is Sterling doing it consistently week in, week out, and showing the likes of Mudryk, showing the likes of Nico Jackson, Cole Palmer, Broja, whoever it is in that front line, that he's the main man, and he's going to lead them, and he's going to lead by example. So good signs for you. What it does demonstrate is his ability is not in question, and he can still find the back of the net, produce assists, and put in man of the match performances. But I guess the question, and like you've just mentioned, you're a bit unsure as a fan, is are you going to see it consistently over a period of time rather than just the odd game against a weaker opposition? Because we know Sterling can bully weak defences, right? He's done it his whole career. Yeah. I suppose Chelsea Arsenal will be a huge litmus test for him, because I'm sure he'll start that game. And I mean, what can he offer there?
That's a big call to make, because Cole Palmer has to start because he's been unbelievable for us. Mudryk, who didn't start against Burnley, but they didn't feel the need to risk him following a slight precaution against Fulham on Monday night, where he come off at half time. He played 10 minutes. He's been in great form. It'll be harsh on him not to start. You then suddenly got big decisions to make. And like, it's what you want as a manager. You want these decisions, but whoever misses out, it's going to feel pretty harsh, because Mudryk deserves to play, Cole Palmer deserves to play, and Sterling probably deserves to also play based off his last performance. So you're suddenly in a difficult position for the Arsenal game, where you're thinking, well, for me, it would be Jackson, Mudryk, Cole Palmer playing.
Really? But then you would pick Sterling?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I tell you why, because Cole Palmer can't be left out. He's been absolutely brilliant for us. Mudryk, he started 4 games on the spin before this game against Burnley. Superb. Got his first goal for us, looking a real threat. Confidence high, playing regular football. But this is what I mean, though. Like, mate, it's tough at the top level, because you pick up a little niggle, you miss out on starting 1 game. The person that comes in bags 2 goals and assists and puts in a man of the match performance, and then suddenly people are thinking, maybe he should start now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so difficult in football where you don't want to miss any games. So you miss 1 game, it doesn't matter how well you've been playing. The guy that comes in, if he does a performance like that, it's then quite hard to leave him out the team for the following week. So,
do you think that Pochettino might look at Arsenal with Saka and Martinelli, assuming Saka and Martinelli are both fit, and think he'd rather have Sterling playing because he might be able to get Sterling to do more of a disciplined job out wide as well? Like, do you think he'll trust Mudryk to be able to track Saka and Martinelli?
Yeah, look, it's a fair point. I mean, Mudryk does get back and do the defensive work. We have seen him do that. It's going to be tough. It is going to be difficult. You know, you are going to require whoever's playing wide is going to need to come back and help out the fullbacks. Malo Gusto and Reece James both returning. One from suspension, one from injury. Is going to be a big plus at right back. For sure. I think Chukwuemeka is going to be fit again to play. We've got players coming back. Badi Ashile might be available, so it's good. But look, it's an interesting point. I mean, whatever he goes with is not going to be crap, but there are decisions to be made, and that's what you like to have. You like decisions to be made, but whoever's playing, it's going to be tough. You know, against an Arsenal backline that is decent. I mean, Saliba. Look, people go on about Saliba as like best centre back in the league, best centre back, whatever. I mean, that's a different conversation. But are you surprised how, just briefly back to Arsenal, how he completely shut down Haaland pretty much? I know Haaland didn't have the most service, but Haaland was pretty much anonymous in that game. I mean, how highly do you rate Saliba, by the way? Like, is he as good as? Because look, obviously you watch him every week. I don't watch him every week in detail. How good is this guy?
I mean, I wouldn't swap him for any other defender in the Premier League.
No,
that's how not like definitely not. That's how highly I rate him. And it's not like it's a one-off him controlling Haaland. Done it in the Community Shield. He did it last year in the FA Cup match before being taken off. Before Rob Holding got taken off, and then Saliba came on and did the same thing. So he's controlled Haaland for 2.5 games. Mate, I would not swap him for any centre half in the Premier League. He is absolutely exceptional. He's good on the ball. He's strong. He gives you absolutely everything. So no, I really, really rate him, and I don't think you'll find an Arsenal fan that disagrees with that.
No, I think it's fair. He's certainly right up there in that conversation. But yeah, look, for Chelsea, I think, we seem to have found stumbled across a situation now where you kind of know what the best team is at the moment. Obviously, when Nkunku comes back in, he goes in. Let's see how that switches the setup. But it just goes to show, mate, like, it's so difficult when you come in, when you've got all these new players, so many players injured and key players at that, to find a settled system, to find the personnel that you want to play, and then have them all available at the same time. And I know it's only a sample size of maybe sort of 3 games, including the cup, but we're now seeing that the system seems settled, the balance seems a lot better, players seem more confident, and the understanding is developing certainly between the attacking players, developing between the players in the midfield. Mate, Conor Gallagher, I want to talk to you about him because I've admitted it loads of times. Started a summer window. I wouldn't have been bothered if he left the club, but he's had a brilliant pre-season. Pochettino clearly trusts him, likes his characteristics, his attributes. Pressing from the front, high energy, etc. All that sort of thing that you associate with a Pochettino team. He's been captaining the side for the time being, whilst James and Chilwell have been injured, and he's had a brilliant season, and he's surprised a lot of people. How surprised are you at how important Gallagher's been in these opening 8 games? Because, mate, for no Chelsea fans expected it, and I think to the wider footballing community, it's a big surprise as well. But it just goes to show that you don't need to be like a big game or a flash player to be important to a team.
Yeah, it's a classic one again of, I think, a player that was stifled by the kind of turbulent environment at Chelsea. Because Gallagher, when he was on loan at Palace, was so good. Yeah. He was so good. And then he comes back to Chelsea, struggles in a struggling team, and all of a sudden everyone pins the blame on the player and writes the player off. It's just not that's not how football works. You don't become a bad player overnight like that. Especially when he's shown at a young age he's gone to Palace and imposed himself on the Premier League. So he's just benefiting again from being in a bit more of a settled team and training with his teammates more. Pochettino's implementing his tactics more, and you're seeing Gallagher thrive. Like he did at Palace. I don't think anyone's got. Well, there shouldn't be any question over his ability when he did it for a full season in the Premier League. So yeah, it's good for you because he's a proper all-action midfielder, isn't he? Does everything, intercept, wins the ball back, offers goal threat going forward. So yeah, he'll do well for you in that midfield 3.
I mean, I like him. If he carries on like this, fantastic. I'm still a little bit unsure about whether he's good enough to be starting every single week for Chelsea and for us to win trophies with him being a mainstay in the team. And I'd be more than happy to be proven wrong if that does turn out to be the case. I think he can be a very good squad player. He's one of those that he's not going to make a fuss about his playing time. He'll always give 100% for the badge. So, yeah, look, right now he's been brilliant. I think the balance of the midfield looks really good with Enzo, Caicedo and Gallagher. My only concern is there's not many goals in that midfield. Yes, Gallagher can score goals, but he's not a prolific goal scorer. Caicedo doesn't score many goals, and Enzo Fernandez doesn't really pop up with that many either. So whilst I like the balance of that midfield, I think they complement each other well. Goals from midfield is still an area of concern for me because I don't look at any of those guys and think they're prolific goal scorers. But then they've been spoilt by having the best goal scorer midfielder that's ever played in Frank Lampard. So you then end up sort of trying not to compare. You end up sort of comparing to what output you used to get. I mean, mate, what do you think's decent output for central midfield players for goals? When you look at like sort of a player like Enzo Fernandez, for example, I mean, how many goals do you think he should be getting from midfield? Because I have this conversation with a lot of Chelsea fans, and like, look, we all love Enzo, but the one thing that always gets said is needs to contribute more goals wise. I mean, what do you think is an acceptable tally for a midfield player? Because he's not exactly an attack minded player, but then he's not a number 6 either.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I mean, I don't really know the answer. I suppose I'd ask the same thing of someone like Declan Rice in our team. Like what can he contribute going forward? I guess if you're getting
5,
4 or 5 goals, I'd point to someone like, well, I was going to say Xhaka for us last season, who had a really high contribution rate from midfield.
That wasn't normal though, was it? Across his career, that was like a one-off, wasn't it?
Well, that was also, he got moved to play in that like left 8 role, which isn't the same role as like Enzo's playing. Yeah, 4 or 5. I think you want that of your, when they've got the technical ability of someone of Enzo Fernandez, he should be able to contribute that. And I think managers should be pushing them to do that, because if you can get goals from midfield as well as your front players, then you're laughing, aren't you? So yeah, I think if I look at it from our point of view, if Rice comes in with 4 or 5 goals, he's already got that clutch goal against United, then you're probably quite happy. So probably similar for Enzo.
I mean, mate, what do you make of the Chelsea midfield balance-wise? Like, where do you think it sort of stacks up in terms of midfields in the league? I know it's kind of a new midfield, but if you look at sort of Enzo and Caicedo, I think that complements each other quite well. And then Gallagher pressing from the front. I mean, what were your thoughts on it? I mean, obviously Caicedo, you tried to get him in January. It didn't quite happen. I mean, sort of how high do you rate him? Do you think he's a top player? I mean, I think Burnley was another great performance from him. I mean, where do you think the Chelsea midfield stacks up? I know it's still got a bit of developing to go, but do you think like could be on the way to being one of the best in the league potentially?
I mean, like purely on paper, then yeah, you've got Caicedo, a player who everyone was after really, and obviously we were quite heavily in for him. Enzo Fernandez, who lit up the World Cup and has shown his ability since he's been at Chelsea. I just feel like Pochettino struck a balance, hasn't he? That Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher balance with Enzo a bit deeper seems to have kind of clicked. I don't know. You need to see it over a long period of time, don't you? It's the kind of question we'll be able to answer in March, April. If that midfield 3 consistently plays week in, week out and takes Chelsea into kind of top 5, 6 in the table, then yeah. But it's certainly got signs of working really well now, hasn't it?
No, it absolutely does. And do you know what's mad, right? Like, it's sort of, I know there's a bit of a negative narrative around Chelsea. Like, compare it to Newcastle, for example, who are being praised, and rightly so. We're only 2 points behind Newcastle in the table. Yet the narrative that gets painted around the two clubs is that Chelsea are in a complete disaster and Newcastle are doing unbelievable. Like, we're 2 points off them. Like, I'm not saying we're better than Newcastle at this point in time, but do you know what I mean? Where you get like I know we spent a lot of money and that's probably part of the reason why. But do you know what I mean? Like, we're only 2 points off Newcastle, yet everyone's talking about us as like no chance of getting in the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you sort of look at the table and you think there's such a vast difference in narratives between two clubs that are actually very close together.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at the table now. I suppose we're still so early in the season that those kind of gaps are so close, because you're 2 points off Newcastle. Then I guess if you flip it on its head, you're also 2 points off Nottingham Forest. And when you bring money spent into it, that's why that narrative is always going to be there for Chelsea, no matter what. But you make a really good point. Chelsea put together a couple. It doesn't take much to take you from those 11 points up to 14, 15. And all of a sudden, you're looking up, aren't you? So
I think we're 7 points off the Champions League at the moment, which, all right, it's not great, but that's not insurmountable at all. I mean, the next run of games after the break is going to be absolutely massive. We've talked about it before: Arsenal, Brentford, City, Newcastle, Spurs. It's tough, it's tough. It's tough, and like those tough runs either make you or break you as a team. Like it could be the making of this team, or it could be back to the drawing board, thinking, "Fuck, we're in trouble here." Like I think we'll surprise a few people on the way. I'm not expecting positive results in every game, but I think we'll win a couple of those games that people don't expect us to win. And I think that's that. I mean, obviously, I'm hoping we do. I'm not just saying that because I want us to. I do genuinely believe that. I think we will prove a few people wrong in that run because right now, not many people are giving us any chance of picking up that many wins, probably outside of the Brentford game. But mate, in terms of international break, fucking boring, dull. I guess from an Arsenal perspective, just hoping, or I guess both perspectives, just hoping no one comes back injured.
Yeah, that's it. I haven't really got much interest in this break. Like a friendly
we've got England, Australia, and then England, Italy. 2 shit games.
No interest, mate. I'll get back into the swing of it when the Premier League comes back. I honestly probably will not. I always say I won't watch the games. I always end up watching them, but like, they're just so sapping. It's so weird for someone that like us as fans. We go week in, week out. Like spend all that money to watch our teams. So invested in it, and then the international break comes around. I just couldn't care less. It's so weird.
It is weird, isn't it? Like, but then when it's a major tournament, you're like fucking bang up for it. It's like
you do get into it.
Yeah. Get a bit more into it.
That probably goes to show like the state of the international football structure more than anything, doesn't it?
It's just crap, isn't it? I mean, I wish there could be a way where we just had tournaments and just fucking get rid of all these qualifying games, all these dog shit friendlies, and just have the tournaments. I know that's probably not possible, but mate, no one cares about these games. I mean, seriously, they are horrendous. Eden Hazard's banner will be in the Matthew Harding end against Arsenal. So you boys can have one last look at him again. The banner will be up, which is good. Now he's retired. That banner deserves to stay in the stadium 100%. Yeah, mate, I think we'll probably round that one out here. Got through a lot of stuff. Guys, thank you to every single one of you, as always, for tuning in. Please, on the way out, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Let's run these likes up, people. Let's get to at least 50 if we can on the way out. So please smash the like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Webby, thanks for your time as always, mate. Next week's show will be building up to the big game at the Bridge, so make sure you tune in for that one, guys. But until then, people, smash the like, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back tomorrow, possibly with the call-in show. I haven't fully decided yet. But until then, guys, up the Chelsea and peace out, people.